Hello friends and welcome to Simon Says Stamps DieCember. As the name suggests, it's all about dies, and I have a couple of cards featuring a really gorgeous set. Hanging leaf ring is so beautiful, and I have it featured in a clear card and also a flat shaker. This die set comes with an ornament ring, florals, and leafy sprigs. So let's get started with the clear card. Matte gold cardstock was cut with two of the largest dies from the Nested Domed Arches die set, taped together to create a frame. The ornament ring from Hanging Leaf Ring was also cut from matte gold cardstock. The elements are going to be adhered to an acetate card base. To avoid any adhesive oozing and smearing onto the acetate, I'll be working with Tombow adhesive. It has been applied to both the ring ornament and the domed arch frame. These elements are set aside to dry completely, and in the meantime I'll work on my florals. After the largest flower is layered, I'll place a glue drop right in the center of each of the flowers. I'm making sure that I'm not just putting a dot of glue on there, it's actually a dome of glue. And I'll sprinkle on some gold prills. This will leave a really nice dimensional center to the flower. And this is set aside to dry completely. And while it's drying, I'm going to tie some gold embroidery thread to the ring ornament. You certainly could make your own acetate card bases. This one is purchased from Simon Says Stamp. I want it to lay completely flat, so I'm burnishing the fold with my bone folder. Now I can take my arch and lining it up at the bottom of the acetate card, lay it in place. Then the gold ring is centered in the arch. When Tombow adhesive dries, it is tacky and repositionable, so I'm able to lift up the top of the arch, feed my embroidery thread underneath it, and then apply some pressure, and then I'll just take my scissors and trim off the excess. The foliage has been die cut from gold glitter cardstock. I won't be using my regular adhesive because these pieces are going to be following the curve of the ring. I don't want to take a chance that the adhesive smears onto the acetate. So I'm going ahead and applying the Tombow adhesive again to the main stem and letting it dry. I also applied this adhesive to the big piece sentiment, which is going to sit right below the ornament ring. And because I'm working on an acetate card base, I can use my grid that is on my work surface to help me get it lined up. And I have lots of flexibility because the Tombow adhesive, when it is dry, is repositionable. Most importantly, as things are being shifted around, there is no residue left on the acetate. So now I'm taking the leafy branches and I am adhering them to the ring itself, overlapping one over the other so it has a nice full appearance. I added one sprig at the top of the ornament, and I'll add in a couple of more on the side. The large flower will be positioned so that it overlaps where the two different styles of leafy branches meet. The smaller flowers will be used to fill out the floral design. I'm going to be adhering them by using small glue dots. For the larger flowers, I would have to use a fairly good dollop of liquid adhesive, and I just don't want to take the chance of it smearing onto the acetate. The glue dots are very strong and they will hold the flowers securely. I'm adding another leafy sprig at the top of the ornament, and then it will be finished off with a pretty red Christmas flower. I love all the beautiful textures of gold on this card. Between the matte gold cardstock, the gold glitter paper, and the pretty prills that are in the center of the flowers, I think it looks really amazing. And so why not add in one more additional touch? The floral arrangements will be filled out with some gold satin confetti. This time I will be using liquid adhesive because I'll just require a small dot of glue to hold the confetti securely in place. So now it's time to transform the confetti into beautiful smooth crystals by adding Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew. When it dries, it will be clear and these embellishments will really be taken to the next level. Now on to card 2. I started off by die cutting a frame just like I did for the first one, and I'm adding in the Tombow adhesive. I'm doing this first because it's going to be set aside to dry completely. Remember, it took 2 of these arch dies taped together to form the frame. I'll be using the largest of the 2 to cut acetate. The Tombow adhesive on the frame is now tacky and I don't have to worry about it oozing out as I position the acetate window onto the frame. This shaker is going to be a shaped card, so I'm taking that largest die that I used to cut the acetate with, and I'm going to die cut white cardstock that has been folded in half. Cutting edge at the top of the arch will overhang the fold as it goes through the die cutter. So the arch will be a little bit misshapen at the top, so I'm going to add another die cut out of soft pink glitter cardstock. Now I'll go ahead and prep the elements that are going to go on this card, starting with that gold glitter Peace Sentiment, which is going to be stacked onto a foam die cut. I find it easiest to stack the sentiment when the excess foam is not removed. The foam die cut will be slightly depressed, making it very easy to align the cardstock one to it. It is set aside to dry completely. Because the ornament ring is going to be sitting directly on the acetate, I'm also going to add Tombow adhesive to it as well, but first I'm tying on some gold embroidery thread. The flowers for this card have been die cut from soft pink or ivory cardstock. Just like the first card, I'm adding a good size mound of adhesive to the center of the flowers and then coating them with gold prills. Because of the large amount of adhesive, these do take a while to dry, so I let them sit for, maybe an hour. But it is so worth it because the mound in the center of the flowers covered in the prills really does add a special touch. Because the acetate window is being adhered to glitter cardstock, I found it best to use liquid adhesive, but I made sure that I applied just thin streams of glue right along the edge. I'm leaving the top open so I can add my shaker material in, but this is being set aside to dry first. And now that it's dry, I'm going to be adding in some white sparkly flat discs as my shaker material. The white on the soft pink creates a very soft effect, but then you give it a shake and it's got that fun sound. I'll go ahead with the liquid adhesive and add it in at the top so I can close up my shaker. And again, this will be set aside to dry completely. Lots of drying time with this card. After it's dry, I'll buff up the window with a microfiber cloth. Speaking of drying time, I should have prepped all of my elements ahead of time, but I forgot. So now I'm adding the Tombow adhesive to my sentiment and to the leafy sprigs right down that central stem. This adhesive doesn't take too long to dry as long as you put it on fairly thin. I'd say about 10 minutes. So now I can take my sentiment and center it right at the bottom of the arch. I did remember to put the adhesive on the ornament, so it's good to go. But I am going to take some tape and putting the ornament face down, I'm going to just hold those embroidery threads together so that they're out of the way. Now I can easily adhere the ornament to the front of the shaker. The leafy sprigs will be added to the ring. One that I'm adhering now has a curve to it. I have a second one, but I want it to go in the opposite direction. So obviously the curve isn't going to be quite right. But if I start right at the base and then work my way around to the tip of the foliage, I can finesse it and make it work. So now I can add in my other 2 sprigs. And so that really is the other bonus about working with an adhesive that dries tacky like Tombow glue. Really play around with the positioning of the die cuts because the initial point where you press it in, it is going to hold. I have my pink and ivory flowers laid out on the spray, and this time I'm going to be using liquid adhesive to adhere them. All of them, with the exception of one flower, are going to be sitting on the foliage, so I don't have to worry so much about the adhesive. I just take particular care with the one that is sitting directly on the acetate. After removing the tape that's holding that embroidery thread out of the way, I can go ahead and add in 1 sprig and then 2 more flowers to finish off the top of the ornament. I wanted to do something a little bit fanciful with the embroidery thread. So once I have this small arrangement adhered, I'm going to let it dry completely. And then using my tweezers, I'm going to take the threads that are on either side of the spray and swing them around so that they are coming out of the bottom. And then I'll just work the 2 bunches of strings until they meet in the center. A dot of adhesive is placed in the center to hold the strings and then finished off with gold confetti. At the bottom of each grouping of threads, I'll add in a smaller size confetti. And this little arrangement at the top of the ornament will be finished off with a triangle of confetti. And that wraps up this very ornate flat shaker. And there you go, 2 Christmas cards featuring Simon Says Stamps hanging leaf ring. If you check out my blog at bonniecarolee.com, I have made a 3rd card with this die set that is quite different from these 2. Be sure to check out the rest of the DieCember collection. You are going to love it. Thank you so much for stopping by, and as always, I appreciate your visit.